Welcome back to Programming TV. Today's design is an athlete. He's actually going to be doing a competition in the 30 to 39 division, which is a unique division. We don't see it a lot, but the comp's called Battle of the Ages. So you get the idea that basically they're trying to create as many different demographics based on age as possible. So yeah, a little bit of a unique competition in that aspect, but he's got that coming up in 4 weeks. So basically, we are prepping him for all the demands that are coming up. I've done some homework on that competition. They've got a lot of unique opportunities for athletes, like 2 different floors at least, where one is probably going to be outside, one's going to be inside. They'll have access to quite a bunch of different equipment that we're not going to typically see in online qualifiers, like sandbags and dumbbells, kettlebells, pegboards, ropes, all kinds of things really. So it opens up a lot of different formats to be able to get a little bit more creative with the programming, and then also you have to prepare the athlete for the breadth of things that they could potentially see. So not only getting them kind of topped off from a physiological perspective, is like doing the best they can on all the aspects of their physiology, but then also need to have them mentally prepared to go in and attack multiple sets of workouts at their best. So that is the goal. We're about 4 weeks out from that competition based on the programming you're going to see out of this. So let's dive in. Okay, so starting off Monday, one of the things that we've been working on is snatch strength, and he recently hit a PR in the snatch, so things are going well there. We found like a good rhythm for him and certain qualities of the snatch that have carried over well to improving his maximal strength. He's sort of an interesting case study where he is often better if he can like touch and go into a rep. So almost like if he stands up to the hip, lowers down into essentially a touch and go rep, that it's almost better in that case, just because he gets that stretch shortening cycle. So we've done some things like playing with some dynamic starts and doing some like multiple, like a snatch with like multiple pulls before it, kind of like an elevator snatch, I've heard it called. And as well as other things like working on developing his kind of extension, as well as his just like pulling mechanics as a whole, so that he gets into the correct position when he's actually able to turn over. So all things that are going to translate well, because typically when he catches an overhead squat or a snatch, he's going to be staying up in the overhead squat. That's not the limitation for him. So give him one of our snatch warm-ups. And then today we're just going to start off with that snatch intensity. So snatching up to a tough double. I want him dropping and resetting between those. So again, saving things like heavy singles for weeks to come as we get closer to competition, or if do like a Metcon into, a lift or a complex or something, we might see something along those lines in future weeks. But keeping things pretty, simple here to start off. And then some of that snatch pull accessory that I was just referring to before. In this case, we're going to do a snatch pull to hip at right around his 1 rep max. And again, I want him to really focus on using the lats to glue the bar to the hip in what would be the extension, but at the hip. Yep. And then I really want a Metcon that's kind of focused on barbell cycling on this day. And barbell cycling can obviously mean different things on different days. One of the things that we haven't done a lot of is squat strength endurance. And I was thinking of good workouts that I could either pull from, draw from, or, create from scratch. And I thought of the semifinals workout from this year, and I thought it would be a really good fit for this day. So it's also a really good way to kind of signify to the athlete, like, hey, we're in comp prep now. And all of a sudden we're doing training that's more intensive and more, just symbolic of what you're going to see, or representative of what you're going to see at a competition. So something like this, and then there's also good data on an event like that is all reasons why it makes sense. Not that we haven't been doing intensive work up to this point, so he's prepared for it, just like mentally. It's a different train of thought when you know that you're in competition prep. So it's Semis Event 2 of 2024, 5 rounds for time with an 18-minute cap, 100 double unders, 20 toe to bar, 10 front squats at 225. So he finished under the cap, which is good. I'm happy with that. And then just some stuff to open up the hip and quad, since that was obviously a lot of squatting volume, especially since he's good with squatting and barbell cycling, but it's still a lot of reps and a lot of intensity. So make sure that we're taking care of everything there. And then the next day, I want this to be much more of an aerobic day. So we're going to do some zone work at the beginning and end. If you have recently listened to the show where I went over an own week of my own training, that this is actually the same week, like the same dates. So one of the things you're going to see is that the Saturday workout is going to be the same, obviously, because it's the same dates, and we're both doing the name game. So I also, I think it was also my Tuesday session, which is kind of funny because I often like giving stuff that's, a little bit more for someone who's strength limited, and we're probably similar in the fact that we're both snatch strength limited as well, or like more hip centric strength, that I really like giving that on Mondays if people have a Sunday rest day. And then you probably want to hit something that's maybe the most joint taxing, or that potentially I could have like a recovery deficit on the tail end of your training session, that, or like the first half of your training week before your rest day. That way you have an opportunity to recover, obviously, on your rest day, recovery day, so that you can, again, hit more priority work back on Friday. So with that being said, it makes sense to have something that's maybe a little, not necessarily lower, but more sustainable, repeatable, and beats you up a little bit less. And erg work is a great way to do that. And obviously, if you're someone who's still building the foundations of your sport work, that things that are more aerobic are going to translate really well to your sport. So all those reasons why it makes sense to do this sort of thing there. So he's running 2K at the beginning and the end of the session, just at a pretty casual pace. And then I also want him as one of the main pieces here. We're going to be doing some mixed aerobic at a prescribed intensity. And we also want gymnastics in there. So in this day, I went with running, since we didn't. Often he might be running and doing barbell cycling on Monday, for example. If it was that instead of, double unders or something, that would make sense. But he did do 500 double unders the day before, so he might be feeling a little bit tender. So giving him a little extra warm up and kind of easing into this running work for the day. And then I also wanted to make sure that we hit ring muscle up, because again, we've done a fair amount of bar up to this point, but not ring in the last, I don't know exact number of days, but it's been a little bit since we hit ring. So this is a good dose for the day. So warming up 3 sets of 400 meters at the workout pace, and then just some like ring muscle up prep work, low ring transitions, and beat kips on the high rings after each. So the actual work, 4 sets, resting 1 minute between, 800 meter run, and 8 ring muscle ups. So basically a challenging run, and then come in and try to hit I say come in, he's not running outside probably, but getting off and hitting 8 ring muscle ups. Those will be unbroken for him. So basically a challenging effort, rest a bit, and then start back up. And the goal for him is to ramp the effort and the paces for that. And then we'll give him a little bit of just a little gymnastics accessory to get a little bit more volume without just doing more ring muscle up volume. So 3 to 4 rounds for quality, 12 ring rows with the feet elevated, making that much more of a controlled range of motion, horizontal pulling action, rather than, the ring muscle up sort of a hybrid between vertical pulling and horizontal pulling, but to have that be more controlled and true horizontal pulling versus that hybrid. And then so 12 ring rows with the feet elevated, 6 ring dips, 3 to 4 rounds. So not a lot of work, but just accumulating a bit of additional volume around the shoulder. And that's only going to translate also to kind of joint health almost, to be honest. Because if you can control those ranges of motion better, you're actually going to have better longevity. So that's Tuesday. Wednesday, we're going to go into, this is a true like Metcon higher output type day. And I want it to be gymnastics. Obviously, if it's gymnastics, we can't just hit the same thing that we hit yesterday. So we did a lot of hanging. So I'm going to limit the amount of hanging we do on this day and instead opt for things that are a little bit more pressing based. So the handstand push-up goes really well. One of the things we haven't done a lot of is parallel handstand push-up work, because we haven't been prepping for in-person competitions specifically. So I was like, what would kind of pair well? I really want the parallel handstand push-up to be like the main star of the show here, and I also want to not make it so taxing that he can't do other more important higher output work following this. So it's like, what would be a kind of a good warm-up? Thought a bar pullover was different enough from something like a ring muscle up that it's not going to have a ton of fatigue carryover, but also just kind of impact the parallel handstand push-up a bit. So this is what I came up with: 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 of a parallel handstand push-up to 11 inches So just not quite all the way to the floor. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of a bar pullover. So an ascending amount of bar pullovers, parallel handstand push-ups stays at 5. And yeah, it's really going to be limited by the parallel handstand push-up. And then at the end, it's like seeing if you can maintain your skill of the bar pullover effectively. So again, he's somebody who's experienced, knows what he's doing. So I'll just throw in prep as needed before that. And then again, thinking about the type of athlete he is, that's not going to be terribly taxing, but I do want him to be fresh for the next part. So I'll say rest about 5 to 7 minutes before going into the next part. The next part is it's a little sprint chipper, and we're going to sort of do 2 of these. The first one being, and again, this is a good contrast of like Tuesday was much more aerobic. Wednesday is going to be much more like threshold and above type work where you're going to be spilling over much more anaerobic activity. And as a result, you're going to need longer rest times, where a lot of the stuff in the Tuesday session was like, rest 60 seconds between, or zone work where you don't even need rest. This is going to have a substantial amount of rest between each of the parts so that he can attack each of them with a much higher intent. So even if movement selection isn't crazy different than it was on Tuesday, the feel and overall intention of the work that he's doing is going to be significantly different. So resting 5 to 7 minutes, I kind of wanted something that was, a little bit more power output based. And again, not like something where it's so high power output that he's not able to recover and do one more piece, because I would like to have a third piece on this day. So this is what I came up with, a kind of a sprint chipper, if you will, 30 cal ski, 20 kettlebell hang snatches with 53s in each hand, and then a 10 meter kettlebell overhead walking lunge with those same 53-pound kettlebells. So 30 cal ski, 20 hang snatch, 10 meter lunge. Nice even numbers there. So that one's going to be obviously higher output than the first one, because bar pullovers and parallel handstand push-ups just being upper body, there's just not that much power output. So not needing a lot of time to rest. This one will rest more like 7 to 10 minutes, so a longer rest to make sure that we're fresh and ready to go for this next part. The other thing is, like, if you're doing parallel handstand push-ups and bar pullovers, you're fine to do a hang kettlebell power snatch and a kettlebell overhead walking lunge probably, so you really don't need to warm up between those parts. And if you can do a dual kettlebell overhead walking lunge with 53 in each hand, you're plenty warm to be going into this next piece. So they're all kind of warm up and prep each other, where you really don't need, it's not like he's going into heavy snatch work after this, where he would need to take more than that 7 to 10 minutes, or even prep during that 7 to 10 minutes. It's like maybe do a couple reps during that rest period, and that's the extent of what he really needs to be able to feel good. So, kind of staying with that same thing, we did a kind of a sprint chipper. And this one, it was like, I wrote it, I looked at it, and I was like, that's just not quite enough. Why don't we make it like more of a pyramid chipper out and back? But if I did it where it was a pyramid chipper out and back, then I was like, that's not going to be enough intensity. So what I did was I just injected I injected 60 seconds of rest into the middle of the workout. So ended up being 30 calorie air bike, 20 sandbag squats, holding it however he would like, anyhow, meaning it could be on the bear hug, could be on the shoulder, and 10 burpee box jump overs to a high box. Rest 60 seconds, and you're going to go back through and reversed. So burpee box jump over, 20 sandbag squat, 30 cal air bike. So if you want to drive a ton of intensity, obviously ending on the bike is a great way to do that. And then also I would say that with that burpee box jump over, you can kind of, if you want the cadence to stay high, there's sort of 2 ways you can do it. And I did it both ways, right? Where it's either like you can end the interval on it, where obviously you're encouraged to just get through the reps so that you can be done. And then also if it's at the beginning, you're fresh. So it kind of encourages you to go out at a little bit faster of a pace. So for the same reason that you can get to the other stuff and just get it done with. So whereas like if it's stuck in the middle, you don't really have those options. So you're just like more so slogging through the work. Here, intensity is going to stay higher just because of, for that reason, just you can sort of mentally get through the work. So that being said, that's why it's air bike, sandbag squat, burpee box jump over, sandbag squat, calorie air bike. Yeah. Also, it's pretty that way. And at that point, he's pretty done, right? Like that's a very taxing, very unsustainable work rate. And not something that's going to really have anything productive after that besides maybe some movement work. And want some joint health. One of the things that if we do unilateral work or things that are asymmetrically loaded, for example, like even like sprinting on an air runner, sandbag work where you're like really getting to like a hyper, like, you're basically putting like the back of your hands onto the floor. Like you're getting into a really deep flex position and the spine's not in a super great, it's not like a deadlift setup, right? You have some rounding that's occurring because of that. So those are the sorts of things that can irritate his low back, his hips, QL. So we also want to make sure that those things are being, that can also be part of his prep, but then also in a cool down, we can do things that are going to help keep him symmetrical and keep all the muscles firing in that area. So Copenhagen planks with a short lever to more so work the adductor and the oblique. Single arm dead hangs because that's going to have all the benefits of activating the rotator cuff and having, like even just like grip input and things, but more so thinking about scapular control and then also what it does to the muscles in that area. So like basically stretching out the lat, the QL on each side as you're doing that. And then Jefferson curls with the empty bar, where he's basically just using as much range of motion as he possibly can by like standing on a stack of bumpers to really exaggerate how far he can go past his feet with the Jefferson curl. So yeah, things that, again, for a more advanced athlete, those are all going to be really easy and just, again, helpful joint health things to do. So that was his Wednesday. Thursday, recovery day. O2 reload protocol. We're going to have him do some inversion work and handstand things that are just truly fatigued, some jump rope skills, and then accumulating kind of like vegetables like we do at the gym, where it's like you accumulate as you see fit and you go through a couple different exercises. In this case, 2-minute L set, 50 banded external rotations per arm, 2-minute side plank on each side, and 50 Bulgarian ring row. So like a winging ring row where the elbows are out to the sides. So, okay, Friday, we're going to have him starting off walking. At this point, we've already done a ton of bounding in the week. We had jump rope practice, then we had burpee box jump overs, even though it was low volume. Then we had, about 2, almost 3 miles worth of running. Then we had 500 double unders. So it's a lot up to this point, and we're also going to be running today. So making sure that the calves are getting some blood into them, the Achilles are getting just a little bit of extra blood flow and synovial fluid going in there to make sure everything is feeling okay. And then we're going to give him some of that similar type core, hip, oblique type prep, trunk stiffness, all in here. So we got 2 rounds, Copenhagen plank, short lever once again, quadrupled hip cars, working entire range of motion, band resisted high plank hold. So basically holding like a push-up type position where the band's going over the J cups in the rig, and a heavy banded Palov press. So anti-rotational work. And that's sort of additional prep work to help get him ready for snatches. So snatches is next. We're going to go every 230 times 4 sets. So Monday was snatches, Friday is snatches, and we also might do some secondary clean jerk work on this day depending on the week. And the other thing that you'll notice is when we did on Monday, it was built to a tough double. So no set number of, no determined number of sets that he was doing, just building to a tough double. We got 4 sets and it's 5, 4, 3, 2. And each of those is supposed to be heavy but confident. And I also want him doing this not to touch and go. Okay, and then I wrote this next piece, and this is I wanted a sandbag run type piece, and what I ended up doing was 4 sandbag box get-overs, 40 inches. So you put the sandbag over the box, a 150-pound bag over 40 inches, and then you follow the sandbag over the box. So 4 of those into a 400-meter run, and then we're going to make these intervals. So in the remaining time, you're going to do max burpee box get-overs with that same 40-inch box. So think about how long that is, even at a slower pace, an 8-minute mile pace, you're looking at 2 minutes for the run. So that should be pretty easy to get through. And I want him at least not having a lot of time where he has to push the run to really earn the right to get a fair amount of burpee box get-overs, because I'm not really worried about him accumulating a ton of volume there. I really want it to be like he needs to run hard if he wants to have time to actually get a bunch of reps. So I think 2.5 minutes is going to be good there, and it's not going to be so like the run you can really be very controlled about your intensity there. So we don't need a ton of rest. So 230 on, 1 minute off, and we're going to do this only 3 rounds so that, because I don't really want the volume of the running getting high because we've done so much bounding already in the week, and I want the intensity to be really high because the last time we did running, it was lower work. So his score is going to be the total number of burpee box get-overs that he gets through. So also kind of incentivizes you to go out fast and log your reps while you can. And then we're going to do a little bit of just more threshold and above type intervals where it's kind of highly occluding skiing with a pretty short rest. So 8 cal ski at damper 8. So a lot of tension around the shoulder and lat and tricep, but with that rest injected into there, it's going to make it more sustainable. And I want it to be sort of moderate to tough across all of it. So about 80% effort. He's going to have some blood in the shoulders at that point. So making sure that we do just a little bit of mobility work to kind of work those out and make sure he's ready to go for the next day. Because on Saturday, as I alluded to before, this is the same name game workout that I talked about on Programming TV the other week with my own training. It was matchstick from 0 to 10 minutes on the clock. You'll have 1 squirt event. It was a 1 mile air bike. In the remaining time, find a max complex of a clean, hang clean, and jerk. And then at the 10-minute mark, you have another event that's 4 time, and it's 27 deadlift at 255, 21 calorie air bike, 15 lateral burpees over the bar, and 9 clean and jerks at that same 255 pound barbell. So pretty fun workout with like a different take of strength work, which I think it ended up being a really cool, fun workout to do. Very challenging for those final 9 reps. So there you have it. That's the first week of comp prep for somebody who's prepping for the upcoming Battle of the Ages. So I hope you found this helpful. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe. And as always, stay the course.